Doctor Who deals with many difficult issues, such as death, grief, and racism. But perhaps the most difficult issue to represent in media is depression. Depression is probably one of the biggest issues in society in recent times, a subject that is so hard to talk about and explore. It's something that is extremely difficult to describe, and this leads to many people not being able to understand it. One of the places that we often look for answers is media. So how does Doctor Who depict depression? Real, brutal, and dark. The episode that I'm talking about is, of course, Vincent and the Doctor. Ostensibly a classical historic episode where the Doctor and his companion go on an adventure with a famous historical figure. Yet this episode is thematically different to other episodes of the show, shaping the story and themes around the historical figure, Vincent van Gogh, a man plagued by depression and seen as a madman in the society that he lives in. Doctor Who excels at mixing history and science fiction to tell an engaging story while also teaching you about that subject. In this case, the Doctor and Amy travel to an art gallery with Van Gogh's work until they spot something in a painting that shouldn't be there. They immediately travel back to the time that the painting was painted to find out what happened. Here, we get to see Vincent van Gogh shunned by society as they don't understand him or what's going on inside of his head. People with depression often feel isolated and alone. Here, this is taken to the extreme, with Vincent's only companion being his artwork, of which he and everyone he knows thinks is worthless. The first people that treat him with any sort of kindness or compassion is the Doctor and Amy, and Vincent takes this in his stride, changing from being hostile to being kind and warm to strangers that he now considers his friends. This doesn't last long, however. Once the Doctor tells him that after he paints the church from the gallery, that he and Amy will get out of his hair. Vincent is visibly distressed, but leaves still determined to help his newfound friends. When the Doctor goes to check on Vincent, he finds him crying in his bed, curled up, utterly broken, and full of despair.
It's so clear you cannot help. And when you leave, and everyone always leaves, I will be left once more with an empty heart and no hope.
He lashes out at the Doctor when he tries to help him, and the Doctor admits defeat, telling Amy that it is time for them to leave. Here, we see how horrible depression can be, how much pain the smallest of actions can affect someone with depression, and how even amazing people can be crippled by this disease. As Vincent tells the Doctor, he is completely without hope, and he has an empty heart. Tony Curran, the actor that plays Vincent in this episode, portrays this excellently and really sells the fact that this is a broken man plagued by demons. However, in the next scene, Vincent is up out of bed with a determined attitude and ready to help out the Doctor and Amy. This might seem confusing. It doesn't make sense how a man can go from being so tormented to being able to face a creature from outer space in mere minutes. But that's the point. Depression doesn't make sense. You can go from being in such a terrible form to being able to do anything in mere moments. The villain of this episode was also chosen to be somewhat of an allegory for depression. When we are first introduced to the creature, it is through the Doctor and Amy's eyes. In the episode, only Vincent can see this creature called the Corpheus, and upon confronting the creature, the Doctor thinks that Vincent is having a fit. Only the person suffering from depression can see depression, and only they can face it. It is a disease like no other, where you must fight it to survive. How fitting is it that Vincent alone can only see this monster, and he must fight it, the same way that he alone can only fight his depression. This episode also depicts the stigma surrounding depression. Throughout the episode, we see how Vincent is treated poorly due to no fault of his own. Even after a girl was murdered in the street, the townsfolk blamed Vincent, despite him having nothing to do with it. Even the professor in the gallery struggles to describe how Vincent died. See how he awkwardly stumbles over the words.
Less than a year before before he killed himself.
When trying to describe how Vincent died, even when talking about a historic figure, it is hard to talk about depression. Depression often leads to people having low self-esteem and low self-worth, thinking that they are unimportant to everyone. The doctor shows Vincent that this is untrue. He takes him to the very same art gallery at the beginning of the episode, where 120 years later, his art is adored by millions, and we get an amazing speech from the professor about how amazing Vincent is.
To my mind, that strange, wild man who roamed the fields of Provence was not only the world's greatest artist, but also one of the greatest men who ever lived.
Of course, not every person with depression has the same effect on the world as Vincent van Gogh. But everyone, everywhere, is important to someone, somewhere. We might not be able to take away depression from those that we love, but we can help them by showing them how important they are. We see how much of an effect this has on Vincent. His eyes well up and he almost cannot cope, yet he assures the doctor that these are tears of joy. You can have that effect on someone with depression by just showing them how important that they are. After they drop Vincent home, Amy wants to return to the art gallery, certain that they have changed things, and that Vincent did not take his own life after his adventure with the doctor and Amy, and that time has changed.
Oh, the long life of Vincent van Gogh. There'll be hundreds of new paintings.
However, history remains unchanged, and Vincent took his own life, aged 37, in the year 1890. Amy is distraught and upset that she wasn't able to save Vincent, and that nothing that did mattered didn't change anything. The doctor has a different view of things.
The way I see it, every life is a pile of good things and bad things. Hey, the good things don't always soften the bad things, but vice versa. The bad things don't necessarily spoil the good things or make them unimportant.
Sometimes depression does end tragically, but sometimes it doesn't. All we can do to help those struggling with it is to add to their pile of good things, and we can make a difference. This episode ends on a bittersweet note, showing us the brutal reality of life and how depression can sometimes lead to dark places, but it gives us hope that we can make a difference and that depression can be overcome. This is how to depict depression.